Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Would you now please turn off your cell phones, your beepers? Let us stand and do a pledge of allegiance. And after that, the invocation by Minister Jim Hunter of the Blue Ridge Church of Christ. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reverend Hunter, if you would.
Our gracious, loving, Holy Father in heaven, as we approach thy throne of grace this hour, we're so thankful that we can do so without fear or trembling, that we can come to thee in boldness, realizing again what thou hast taught in thy word, and again that thou art so loving and kind and gentle and patient and long-suffering with all of us. We're so thankful, Father, for the great country in which we live. We're so thankful for the freedoms we have. We're so thankful for this community in which we live and dwell and go about our business. We're thankful, Father, so much for our leaders, our government leaders, these aldermen and their positions and their willingness to serve this community. We pray that thou will continue to be with them all and keep them in thy care, and may they always look to thy word for their strength, for their guidance. And Father, we also pray for our country leaders, that they too may look to thy word for their guidance. We're so concerned about our morals and the lack of them, and again we realize that our nation, our great nation, was founded upon the principles set forth by thee. And we pray that we may follow thy ways, that we might be pleasing in thy sight, acceptable unto thee in every way. Again, we thank thee for the freedoms that we do have, and we're just so thankful for this part of the country in which we live. We thank thee, Father, for thy Son. We're so thankful for him and the hope and the peace and the joy that is offered through him. We thank thee, Father, for the salvation that thou hast offered mankind. And it's our desire that we all follow thy word to the very best of our ability, that we might stand before thee justified on that great and notable day. Again, we pray that thou will be in this meeting, and that much good may be accomplished for our community. We again thank thee for loving us when we aren't so lovable. It's through Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. You seated. Thank you, Reverend Hunter. We do have a proclamation this evening, Human Rights Week, December 10th through 16th, 2012. Whereas the member states of the United Nations signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on December 10th, 1948, whereas we must, as individuals and as people, take a stand and continue to work together to make freedom, justice, and equal opportunity available for all. And whereas it has long been recognized by the people of our great nation that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas our Bill of Rights guarantees these basic liberties. Therefore, I, Carl Bartlett, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, do hereby proclaim December 10th, 16th, 2012 as Human Rights Week in the town of Black Mountain. So this time we'd like to recognize one of our employees. Over the years we've had many good financial officers, budget officers, but Dean Luby is one that's just outstanding. And at this time, Dean, if you'd come forward, I'd like to present this plaque to you that's been presented to our town. This is a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting presented to the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2011. A certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting is presented by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada to government units and public employee retirement systems whose comprehensive annual financial reports achieve the highest standards in government accounting and financial reporting. I know without you giving them the proper numbers, Dean, it wouldn't occur.
Thank you.
This time we'll have citizen comments. First is Phil Bessassi.
I'm Phil Bessassi, 15 Highview Drive. I hope that you deliberate well and we can get these comments after the meeting as well as before. My only comment now is I'd like to see more planning on the part of this community, looking at what's best for society as a whole, not just what's best for the investor. And when we think of a community project, we have to not just wait for a government grant and then apply for a grant. We need to think about how our buildings and streets and walkways and all are used by the people, decide what's best for those people, and then go for it. I think the dualistic thinking of finding dollars and then deciding how to spend them is wrong. That's about the only comment I really can make. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Lutzenheiser.
Elaine Lutzenheiser, 14 Avena Road. I'd also like to just comment that I'd like to see you put the second citizens' comments back on at the end of the meeting, because a lot of times things happen during the meeting that we'd like to react to, and you can't do that a month later. It has no effect, even when you listen, which you don't very often sometimes. But I'd just like to put my 2 cents in for putting it back on the agenda. Thank you.
Marilyn. Those of you who don't know, this is Black Mountain's #1 bag lady.
I'm never going to live that down. Good evening, everyone. Marilyn Spansky, Greenville Recycling. And we're well into the holidays. We've had a great weekend. We have Holly Jolly and Christmas parade, Circle of Lights, with terrific weather. And so with the holiday too comes something that Greenville Recycling does. And we have an annual holiday styrofoam and packaging event. It will be Saturday, January 5th from 10 to 1 at the Amazing Savings parking lot, where we've been for the last several years. The things we collect are what you normally associate with packaging. Styrofoam, both of the molded in sheets and peanuts, with those no tape or cardboard, grease, dust is okay. We don't take food containers, and we don't take insulation or upholstery foam. But we do take other kinds of packaging foam, this stuff that doesn't break like styrofoam does, bubble wrap, air pillows, brown packing paper. We ask that different items be bagged separately. You can imagine, as is often the case, it's windy on that day, that it's very hard to deal with small pieces and particularly peanuts on a windy day. So we do ask that items all be bagged separately, no boxes, please. This event is provided as a community service, and so we ask for donations to help us take the styrofoam to the recycler that's several counties away. We handle that at our own expense. And we make available all those other kinds of items, or if anybody wants the molded styrofoam, for local reuse, whether you're an artist, a gallery, a shop, or you sell on eBay or Etsy, or you're going to be moving and you need packaging. We encourage you to come and to show up, and it's first come, first served. And we've had times when we didn't know how we were going to drive our vehicles because they were entirely packed up, and kind of magically people showed up at the end and they really needed this material and it just kind of vanished. So we do promote a lot of reuse in the community, and this is one such way. Any questions, just get in touch with us. And this will be in the paper in advance, so you'll have full details there too as well. Thank you.
Would you please repeat the hours?
Okay, it's 10 to 1
Thank you.
only.
Thank you, Marilyn. This time we'll have ABC annual report from Larry Harris.
Mr. Mayor, Council, the ABC store in Black Mountain, I think things are going well at the store. We've met with Matt, and Janelle was kind enough to review our personnel policy manual. And the thought was for her to take a look at it and just see what we could do to make things as consistent as we could with the town. And she also, picked up a couple of things that we just needed to change with her expertise, and so that's a good thing, and we'll move forward with that in another month or two as far as making most all the changes that came up. We had a special meeting about toward the end of November on that matter. And as far as the store operations, let's just take a look. Actually, it's appropriate that the folks from Gould Killian Group are here because they presented our audited statements, and I'm just going to pick a few pages out of these statements to give you an idea and to report the results of operations as of June 30th. If you could go to the 5th page, Darlene, that would be great. Right there, you can see that, and this is as of June 30th. You can see that the gross sales were up from the same period for the fiscal year 2011. Gross sales being at right at $1.5 million, and you can see the mixed beverage sales for the period ending June 30th, 2012, and that picked up just a few months of sales pursuant to liquor by the drink being voted in. And then, of course, you had liquor by the drink sales to Monte Vista before that. Then you drop down and you have your taxes, and for those of you who maybe haven't taken a hard look at financials from the ABC store, there's state excise taxes at 30%, and you have sales tax, and then there's other little bells and whistle taxes in there, but there's a lot of tax that gets paid on the way. And you drop down and get your gross profit, and that gross profit percentage, another item of interest if you've never looked at these statements before, the gross profit from the store for the last fiscal year being right at $400,000. That number is controlled by the state, so they control the prices that are charged, they control the cost of the product, and of course the taxes are dictated by by the general statutes. And so at the end of the day, when the auditors come in and look at the numbers, they can tell simply by the gross profit percentage that the cash and all the store is being run in somewhat efficient manner, because the gross profit percentage has to be what it is or something's wrong. It's dictated by the state. What's helpful there to know is that there's a lot of control over what goes on financially at the ABC store, as you probably knew. But down to that point, it goes out to probably 4 decimal points, I guess, doesn't it, Harold, as far as what it should be, and if it's not, something's wrong. So then it's important to know, and you can see, as you know, there's a distribution that's just required by general statutes for law enforcement and for alcohol education and rehab. And we'll take just a closer look at that before I finish. But you can see those distributions are made, and then at that point in time, it's a matter of discretion as to how much is distributed. 75% to the town of Black Mountain, 25% to Buncombe County. And if you would, Darlene, you could go over to page 10, and that really gets us into the notes to the financial statements. We can finish up there, and you can see the town board and those in attendance can see exactly how the distributions are made. You can see that in the year ending June 30th, 2012, $48,000 was distributed to the town of Black Mountain, $16,000 to Buncombe County, and if you'll move down just to the bottom of the page, you can see that the board is required, all boards are required to expend at least 5% of total profits on law enforcement, not less than 7% for education, alcohol education and rehab. The Black Mountain ABC board, since its inception, has done 10% of the total profits to law enforcement and 7% alcohol education and rehab. And the alcohol education and rehab goes to first at Blue Ridge, which most of you are probably familiar with. I think the town uses their services. We had the board chair and the CEO came down and met with us and told us a little bit about their work, and they're doing some good work. They have, I think, if I remember correctly, 85 beds out there. 20 are dedicated to veterans, and they plan to graduate their first female veteran graduate from the program this December. So they have a big waiting list. So they do a lot of good work, and I think if you in your businesses or anybody can be of help to them, they're worthy of your attention. I would draw your attention, if you would, Darlene, move up to there you go. Year to date, this is, if you can see, the note says that since inception in 1971, the town has received $1.6 million from the ABC store in Black Mountain in Buncombe County, a little more than $500,000. And just out of a point of interest, if you'll go just to the next page, Darlene, and I'll be finished and take any questions that anybody might have. If you look at that note, that profit before distribution, that came from earlier, just from the financial statements. That was the profit before required distributions. And this calculation is just required, this is set out by statutes, how it's supposed to be done. And that's how we arrive at the amount that goes out for rehab and to law enforcement. And it's after that distribution is made, that's where we then figure out how much we can give the town. And it's discretionary on the board's part. And the only thing we do, and we asked the auditors while they were there, is how much cash we need to retain at the store to run the store properly. And the advice there is something to cover inventory and payables, which would be $300,000. We're not retaining that much, but a couple of $100,000 is about what's retained to run the store, and then we're distributing everything else. If we have a better year than that, we'll have funds at the end of the year and we'll adjust accordingly. That's where we are. I think I can speak for the other board members, for Deborah Wooten and Bill Christie. We appreciate the opportunity to serve and be a service to the town. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them if I can.
On the page 12 there, the working capital, it's got minimum and maximum, and then it says the actual working capital as defined by the Alcoholic Beverage Control Rule. So is that what we have, or is that what Raleigh says we should have? And if Raleigh says that, then why is there a minimum maximum? I don't.
They do, and Harold could help because he calculates this, but I think we talked about it when the audit was presented to the board. The minimum and the maximum, it's a statutory calculation, isn't it, Harold?
Yes.
It is, it's a statutory calculation. And the actual is what's on our balance sheet.
Okay, so that is what we do have.
I believe so, isn't that right, Harold?
What?
The actual number, that 267, ties back to our balance sheet, doesn't it? Yeah, so it's what we have.
I mean, it was just a little, if it had just said actual working capital, it made sense, but then it says, as defined by Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission Rule .902, and you wonder, well,
You can't
why do we have to?
maintain less than the 48,000 or something. I'm having trouble seeing that.
That's 48,000
It's
or
less than
more.
48.
I mean,
You can't have less than that. You can't have more than, what is it?
416.
416.
416.
Yeah, it's even minimum
Sorry, I
maximum.
can't see.
Yeah,
But, you have something in between that.
yeah, that is the actual.
You actually need more because of financing, inventory, and payables, and all that, so, and buying fixed assets.
It is a little confusing, but that's what auditors tend to do.
Answer my question, thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Larry, can you tell the difference since we had the liquor by the drink vote passed, how sales have been?
We sure can. Darlene, do you have this profit and loss for the year? I'm glad you asked that. Here you go. If you look up on the screen, you see account 401 there, liquor sales. They're up, I think that's about $30,000. But you see mixed beverage sales, they're right at $50,000, and that's from July the 1st through the first part of December.
If you look at your increase in sales, that's about where it's at.
Yeah.
In total sales.
Yeah, the sales, the basic sales at the retail at the store. you know, they go up just slightly each year, but some of that I think is price increase as much as anything else. But you're picking up, that's where you're picking that up, Carlos, right there. And the town also gets, in addition, that's just gonna flow through and get distributed just like everything else, but the town does get an additional, it's 45%. There's a $3.75 charge per bottle if bought by a restaurant offering mixed beverage sales, and almost half of it stays with the town. The other part goes to Raleigh. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Very good. Here, financial statements and auditor's report. You want to introduce them?
Well, I'll be glad to. This is the first year that Gould Killian Group has done the audit for the town of Black Mountain, and I will introduce Harold Cole as a partner, and Travis Kiefer is here. I think they're going to do the presentation. I think, Harold, are you going to start?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll just call Harold to begin that presentation.
Well, we'll try to be brief. But as Matt said, I'm Harold Cole. I'm the partner in charge of the town's audit. And Travis Kiefer's with me, and Ryan Colvin. Dan Mullenix, who was supposed to give this report, came down with the flu yesterday, so picking that up for him. We want to thank you for the opportunity to briefly present the results of our audit, and thank you for selecting us as auditors for 2012. And the financial statements are really your financial statements. They're your responsibility, even though we audit them, even though we help prepare them for the CAFR. So the annual comprehensive report that you have, we call it for short, a CAFR. So the financial statements are inside that, along with a lot of other information. So part of that CAFR, it contains our report of the audit, and our responsibility as auditors are to plan the audit, to perform tests of the accounting records and other procedures, obtain evidence, allow us to offer an opinion. So we're happy to say that, and you can find this on page 1 of the CAFR, our audit report, we're happy to say that it's unqualified, or what we call a clean audit, in a clean audit report. In other words, in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects, and that they contain no material misstatements. And as part of our audit also, we reviewed the town's internal controls. Now, we don't do this to give an opinion on your internal controls, but rather to help us design our audit procedures and what we really need to do. In other words, if you have bad controls in a particular area, we're going to do more work. But we do, and our report on this is on page 73 in the CAFR, and we do report any deficiencies that we note. And this year there were 2 deficiencies. And we had some prior period adjustments stemming back to 2011 and prior. And actually, we didn't discover those. Dean told us about them. But under our standards, we have to still say that that's a material weakness and could result in a misstated financial statement. But Dean discovered those prior period adjustments, so give him all the credit for that. We did have one other weakness that we noted, and that was the process for new vendor setups. There wasn't really any formal approval of that, so we talked to Dean about it, and that's being put in process and corrected. So the management approves any vendors that are set up at this point in time. And I also wanted to say that we think the CAFR is put together. You got the certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting last year ended 6/30/11. We think that you'll get it again for 6/30/12 and every year that we do it. So Travis is going to say a few things to you about the financial statements.
Would you mind going back and just talk about the things that you found in the 2011 issue?
Travis will talk to you about
Okay,
that.
all right, thank you.
Start off by saying that professional standards require that we communicate certain information to the board charged with governance. We noted that all transactions entered into during the year by the town have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period, and that there appears to be sufficient accounting guidance for those transactions. We also noted that anytime we prepare financial statements like this, there's a certain amount of estimation that's involved. We have to disclose the significant estimates. The most significant estimate for any town's depreciation. There's also an allowance for bad debt that's estimated based on past write-offs and whatnot. And also we had to estimate the value of the assets and liabilities that were transferred to Billy Casper at the beginning of that management agreement that eventually come back to the town. We have to estimate that. We can also note that we didn't encounter any difficulties in the audit. We didn't have any disagreements with management. They were a pleasure to work with. We have no unrecorded misstatements. We have to, in the event that any adjustments that we recommend are passed on by management, we're required to report those. We didn't have any of those. Dean brought several adjustments to our attention. We proposed a couple. Aside from the prior period adjustments that Harold mentioned, they were mostly just normal closing entries that have to be made to get the books closed down. Also during our audit, we noted a few other areas which may provide opportunities for strengthening internal control and improving operating efficiencies. To the smaller document next to you, that letter written to management is on pages 4 and 5 of that document. And we proposed and recommended a couple of things relating to the town's procedure with P cards and approval of various expenses. That was pretty much it. The CAFR, we've got back to the big document, just a brief overview of what's in that. Contains it's a pretty thick document. It starts out with an introductory section. The most important thing there's a letter of transmittal. It's a letter Dean writes to you guys with some selected financial highlights. Then there's a financial statement that includes the auditor's report, which Harold mentioned, includes management's discussion and analysis, which is prepared by Dean, and includes the basic financial statements. Just a couple of highlights from the MD&A. We noted that your unassigned fund balance for the general fund was $2.5 million this year versus $1.9 million at the end of 6/30/11. That represents 39.5% of general fund expenditures. That's a positive trend. We'd like to see that continue always. After the basic statements, you've got the statistical section, which Dean also prepares, and then the compliance section, which Harold mentioned, that has the governmental auditing standard reports and findings. So that's really an overview of the CAFR. And I'd like to also thank the board for the opportunity to audit, and thank Dean and the finance office for their cooperation. I guess, and you had a question relating to the prior period adjustments that we had. Those, in fact, most of them related back to years even prior to 6/30/11. Just some things that weren't on the books, mostly in the water and sewer fund related to unbilled water. And then also a sewer line project that was done beginning back in 2003 or 4, I believe. That was mostly completed, several years ago, but it never been capitalized. It was still sitting in construction and process. So we had an adjustment to record that and then record the 6 years of depreciation that should have been reported on, essentially.
So our administration essentially was not reporting things as they should have been?
It was an accounting adjustment, essentially. This related back to well before Dean came on board. And
I'm not picking up
Yeah,
things.
yeah, I understand. It's, yeah, it was an oversight, for sure. And Dean, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that or not.
Well, some of it had to do with the water receivables. And as those things get older, we're supposed to record an allowance for that, which I noticed last year, and I wasn't able to get it done in last year's CAFR. And that's one of we talked about that before they even had signed on. And then there was some unbilled receivables as well, which historically the town sort of hasn't recorded those, and we recorded the unbilled receivables as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your recommendations. What I saw from all of them, it just tightened our security and overall oversight of everything.
Yeah,
Good job.
we feel like things are going well, yeah, it's just.
Good job. Appreciate
Yeah, we
that.
feel like overall you have to get things under control. We see something that can help you strengthen and bring it up.
Well received. You want to address the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'll just start at the top and work my way down. Of course, we've got the adoption of the minutes. Then we've got a handful of budget amendments, and I'll go through those briefly. You've got a budget amendment to recognize, we refinanced the town square property. This is a budget amendment that recognizes that we need to appropriate more fund balance for the debt payment on the front end. We're going to save roughly $400,000 total because we're going to reduce the term. But that's a budget amendment because it's going to be a higher cost annually leading up to that. Secondly, C, you've got a budget amendment to recognize a $1,000 grant from the American Community Garden Association. And that's to go to the, obviously to the community garden. It's a grant by the Robert Mondavi grant. And so that's a $1,000 grant there. D, you've got a budget amendment to recognize an insurance settlement in the amount of $1,267.89 for some repairs at the Carver Center for some water damage that they had. That's the insurance settlement from the company that caused the damage. E, you've got a budget amendment related to law enforcement revenues from the ABC board. As Larry had talked about, out of their profits, they set aside 10% of their profit for specifically for law enforcement. Of course, they give about $48,000 a year as their contribution to the town, which comes to the general fund. This 10% is specifically set aside for law enforcement. The money is in our fund balance. It's just not set aside as restricted fund balance. Dean brought that up. I think that is a step that we need to take to obviously to restrict the fund balance for the use that it's reserved for. This actually goes back a few years to kind of to neaten that up. The amount is about $14,269 that are reserved for law enforcement. Like I said, it exists in the fund balance now. It's not been spent. It's not. There's no other issue there. It just needs to be shown from an accounting perspective as restricted fund balance. For F, that's a budget amendment that the item is roughly the same. That's law enforcement revenues from the Department of Revenue for unauthorized substance tax that we get. That comes up, this budget amendment is in the amount of $4,360. It's the same idea. We receive that money annually. It's in our fund balance now. It needs to be reflected as restricted fund balance and not as unrestricted. And so that's what both those budget amendments accomplish.
And what is that what are some of the restrictions?
Those are, they're really still pretty broad, but they are restricted for use by the police department. They can be used for operational uses, but they are to supplement police department operations and capital. So they have general guidelines, but they are restricted to that department. And any type of restriction then requires us to account for it.
The reason I was asking is because, back several years ago, they'd made a bust and had confiscated like $250,000, And so that money had much more restrictions on it.
Right.
As to what it could be spent for. And I was just wondering, is this money also likewise?
It has, again, it doesn't have, I don't think it has, I'm not sure what the restrictions were for that money. It's, again, it's less the type of restrictions as it is that it's restricted to use by the law, by the police department. And so it's not as restrictive as other types of money or grant money or other restricted revenues that you may get, but it's restricted in the sense that it needs to be reflected that way for the accounting purpose to that department.
And if I could ask, if you could just, with Dean, sometimes there's no rush on it, just to see how much, if we have any left from that capture of that money that we had, like I say, 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, I'll get that.
Just see what it is. Let me know.
And Matt, do we, what are we limited to? I would like to know what we're limited to. These guys need that money. Do they need cars, or do they need radios, or what do they need? And can we use it for that type of stuff, or can we not use it for that type of stuff?
Well, I think we're not limited, I think any limitations generally have been for, to supplement existing operations, so for new equipment, new programs, new materials. Again, but we're not limited for the, so the statutory limitations are pretty broad, except that it has to be used for law enforcement and for their purposes. So within those parameters, that was all that we'd be doing with this.
Well, I think you're working with a board that is going to be successful and try to make the police department successful.
I think the point that you were making, though, that let me just clarify, is that there's not specific expenses tied to this money currently. What we're doing is basically an accounting procedure to reflect it properly. It doesn't mean that there's things that need to be purchased or haven't been purchased or are going to be purchased. Instead, it's really a reflection of how the fund balance is designated.
I think in years past, back many years back, it's all been used for equipment, if memory serves me correct.
That's probably accurate. And then, finally, G, you've got to call for a public hearing for text amendments to the land use code. The planning board is taking a look at the appeals process, and there's just some differing language in the land use code of timelines, 10 days and 30 days, and this is the call for public hearing to review those text amendments. Finally, you've got a call for a public hearing to close the opened platted portion of Locust Street, which has to do with the small subdivision going in there. There's a little realignment, and we have to close a couple of sections of right of way. But Locust Street will still exist. It's just going to be adjusted to mean to close this portion. And this is a call for public hearing.
Any comments on those?
Yeah, getting back to the minutes there, and I was just wondering if you had heard anything back from Billy Castro to the request I made to them last November about their maintenance schedule, about as it shows in here, the complete plan for restoring each tee box in green,
Yes, I think we got
providing
it.
printouts.
We got that.
They gave it to us in that.
Last week.
I'm sorry, Michael.
If I can just get a copy of that.
Yes, sir.
It's pretty detailed.
Just wanted to see it.
Is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Need to go back. Is there a motion to approve the auditor's report for the year ended June 30th, 2012, as presented? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next is the appointment of a representative and alternate to represent the town of Black Mountain in the Buncombe County Metropolitan Surge District.
I make a motion that we appoint Bob Watson.
Motion to appoint Bob Watts. Are there any others?
Before,
Because I'll call for discussion if there's no others, okay? I think that's.
well, there may be others, I wanted to discuss this.
So I'll call for discussion.
Well, the main thing is I don't think that we need to be doing it right now. That's the reason for bringing this up. And so that a vote tonight would not be fair to the citizens of the town. Because if you go to every commission that we're on, whether it's Recreation Commission, Planning Commission, we've got a whole slew of them. The public is made aware that they can apply to be on these commissions. There's not been anything that I've seen that this position is open for people of the town to apply for. We've got over 8,000 people in this town. We've got a lot of good people who could apply for this. We're not under any time constraints. The position has to be filled by January the 16th of 2013. Our board meeting will be January the 14th of 2013. So I think we need to not appoint anyone tonight, in fairness to all the citizens of the town, and give them an opportunity to apply for that. And then hopefully next meeting, which will be January the 14th, we can sit and discuss the applications.
Like I
Because I just
totally-
don't.
Wait a minute. Michael's not through. So let's let him finish.
And, I mean, because it's just not fair. I mean, what other commission do we have that we don't give the citizens an opportunity to go ahead and apply? Now, you could still vote for Mr. Watts next time if you wished, but there is no rush on that. But I do think that the citizens of the town need to be able to, because we've got a lot of very intelligent people out here. This is a very important position here. And also too, the way that this has come about is that the MSD board is probably the most powerful board in Buncombe County of the non-elected boards. We, in the past, I know when I was on the board, I would come to the board and would give a report, sometimes quarterly, sometimes semi-annually. But we need to know what's going on. I mean, we've had one report in the past 3 years. And right now, we've got the most important decision that is to be made by this MSD board is the purchase, or however that's going to work out, of the Asheville water system. This board has not been made aware of any of those discussions by our representative, and we haven't, if we know anything about it, we just got to read it in the paper. So I think that those are some of the reasons why I would like to see other people apply for this position. One of the things that the folks need to keep in mind is that the MSD board was set up by legislative action back in the 60s. If the MSD board then, as it looks like it probably will, to take over the actual water system, it is possible, I'm not going to say it's highly probable, but it's possible that the legislature could go ahead and revoke that statute and thus pave the way for a private water sewer system for Buncombe County. People aren't discussing that. So I think that right now this is critical. The town of Black Mountain gets a third of its water from the city of Asheville. I mean, we are a player in this. I mean, this is critical to us. And for us not to have information about what's going on, I think is imperative. And again, there is no rush. We do not have to do this tonight. We've got plenty of time. Let the people apply. If no one wants to apply, fine. But at least let the people have the opportunity to apply.
Okay. Any other nominations? Not?
Well, wait a minute. Wait. Are we gonna?
He's got a motion on the floor.
Well, I'm asking. I'm gonna ask my friend there, Tim, to withdraw the motion and let the people
I
apply.
will not withdraw my motion.
Well, I'm gonna nominate Richard Hudson then.
I want
think
some
it's-
discussion.
We'll have discussion. Okay. Are there any other nominations? All right, there being none, we'll have discussion.
Wayne?
If you want to discuss something.
Well, I want to say that we have nobody else in this town that I feel like is more qualified with his knowledge of engineering and his surveying knowledge and the things that he's done to do this job. We could go get John off the street and put him on there. And Mike, I don't know where you're coming up with Richard Hudson. He's a real estate salesman. How he could even think about serving in the capacity that Bob Watts serves in. I will not withdraw my motion, and I want everybody to know that I appreciate the fact of what Bob's done. Yes, I'll admit he's a close personal friend, but right on the other hand, the man knows what he's doing.
This particular board is a board of policy. Members on that board decide what the policy of MSD is to be. They don't need to be fluent in sewage. They don't need to be fluent in engineering. They don't need to know anything about it. They need to know policy. They
I
need to
totally
guide.
disagree.
Wait a minute, now you're out of order.
And
Just let him finish.
And
You
that-
remain quiet while you were speaking.
while those could possibly help in making decisions, this is where people have to look at the big picture. We can go ahead, meaning when I was on that board too, MSD hires the engineers. I mean, we've got very, very qualified people to take care of all the technical stuff. It's to get into the political realm, and there is politics involved in this too. That's why I think we need to have, and there are plenty of people in this town who have been on major boards who very well may want to go ahead and apply for a position like this. I'm just amazed that we don't leave this open for the citizens. I'm stunned by that.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Showers?
I too support Mr. Watts. I think he has played a very important part in the position he's held. I think he is very knowledgeable. Alderman Rayburn has already alluded to. I think for a continuation of services and completing what he started, to continue to work on that board. I think that as Alderman Sobol alluded to, that if there was any reporting not back to this board by Mr. Watt, I don't hold Mr. Watt accountable for that. I hold this board accountable for us not demanding from him reports.
And let's say this, Carlos.
Wait a minute,
Wait,
let him
no,
speak. Wait, let him speak, please.
I'm working with you on this.
I know. I think if we want,
I can see you, Tony.
okay,
I can see you, Tony.
Okay.
I think if we want a report, we need to say, hey, we need a quarterly report, or we need a 6 months report, or whatever we need. Whatever will please the board. Is that good with you?
That's fine with me.
Thank you.
You know,
Anyone else got comments?
My comment is that this board can request a quarterly report and be given to the town manager, and it be distributed to us to where we know exactly what's been discussed, what's gone on the last 3 months, and that should, as far as I'm concerned, be sufficient.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm kind of stunned really that we don't have, that Mr. Watson just didn't step forward and give us a report. I mean, he's been a member of this town body, he's been a director here, having to give quarterly reports to this body. He heard reports from me, so I'm just kind of I'm amazed why we just didn't get this, for him to step forward, just to keep us abreast, especially of this critical issue that we're having right now. This is the most critical decision that MSD is involved with since its inception back in the 60s.
Okay. Call for a vote. All those in favor of Bob Watts serving on the MSD board, raise your right hand. All those in favor of Richard Hudson? Bob Watts, duly appointed. Next item, the discussion on the second citizen comment back on the monthly board agenda. Carlos, I believe you brought that up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since we talked about the second citizen comment, I believe it was at our last meeting, I've had numerous calls, people seeing me on the street, wanting to know why did we take away their freedom of speech. We didn't take away the freedom of speech. I voted for the second citizen comment to be deleted for several reasons. One, it took up a lot of time. But then again, you can say, when you have citizens who want to speak their mind, we should have all the time in the world to sit back and listen to them, which is true. Number two, it was not so much a lot of citizen commenting that was going on. It was a lot of citizen attacking of this board. In the last 3 years, I've been subjected to a lot of that attacking, as even Alderman Sobol alluded to when we discussed this before we voted on it. Citizens should have their freedom of speech. They should have the right to speak. And in such, I'm looking at going back and changing my vote and asking that the second citizen comment be placed back on the agenda. And that would be my recommendation tonight.
Have any other discussion on this?
Yeah, I do, Carl. I voted to remove that, and the basic main reason that I did is because it was, as Carlos said, it was used as a bashing session. Maggie and I are new people on this board, and I think the town elected us to be, to run a more professional, issue-driven board, efficient for the town, and conducting the town business in a sensible, kinder atmosphere. And we've done that. This board is miles apart from what it used to be from the past board. I'm not opposed to citizens having their comments, but I think it still needs to remain issue-driven. I'll make a suggestion. If I don't want another citizen comments at the end of the meeting, because that's just grandstanding, and it's not necessary. But if the citizens want to comment on each of these, is like the consent agenda, they've got citizen comments before, and then when we have new business, if somebody wants to make a comment on that particular new business before we vote, that's what makes sense, guys, before we vote. Because after the voting is already done, what difference does it make? We've already voted that way. So put your input in before, give your reasons, and if it makes sense, then we can always draw something off and say, hey guys, this is something that we didn't think about, let's move it to next month. But putting it back at the end of the meeting is I'm not for.
So you're saying do it as we move along? Is that?
And on each issue, if you've got, for example, if somebody want to make a comment on the new business, on the appointment to the MSD board, then you open that up for any citizen comment before we vote, and that gives them a say. Same thing with what we're talking about right now. If in the future, if we decide to vote that way, then folks can get up and express their opinion. But it'll be on that issue, not on some off-the-wall, something that happened last year, 2 months ago, 3, that's what the first citizen comments is for. The general, whatever they want to discuss. But as we go through the new business and the agenda items, I think it should be, the citizen comments should be addressed toward that particular subject if they want to speak about it. I compromise in that way.
Mr. Mayor, question for Alderman Collins. So will we still maintain the 3-minute limit?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you have to have control on it. And, enough detail, we can always increase it, but, it's kind of like when you have to get up after the meeting's over and talk about something the board done, it's a dead soldier already, so to speak. You can't, nothing's going to change, whereas you will have an opportunity to maybe change somebody if you speak about it during the meeting.
Now, will a person be allowed to speak? Will I be
More
allowed
than
to
once?
speak at each? Right.
I don't know why not if you've got something of value.
But just as long as it's on that issue.
Yeah, you got to hold
Not
that
talk
issue.
about something that happened last month or last year, or that's the first citizen comment. First citizen comments should be open to any citizen to say anything he wants to about anything, or any alderman or person on this board. But when we get into doing the town's business, it should be done in a professional, courteous manner and constructive.
Yeah, I think it's always been frustrating. I have to get up and speak to it, that's already been voted on.
Just in the interest of trying to have meetings move along and then flow a little better, I would like to see, I have no problem in bringing back that, because if you remember, I'm the only one that voted not to get rid of it in the first place.
You did?
And there's not been anyone that's been pounded on this board any more than I have at the second citizen comment. So,
Carlos.
I would like for us to, I have to take issue with that, Mr. Showers, on that one. But then we've got 4 issues tonight. We'd have on new business, we'd have 3, and unfinished business, we've got 1. I'd like to see us put citizen comment right at the beginning of the new business for the new business that's coming up for each issue, and then the unfinished business, so that you have a period there that you can address one or each of those 4 things. As opposed to having to have citizen comment brought up each and every new issue that comes before the board.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, well, you want to try it that way, and Darlene will set it up that way?
Sure.
I'm opposed.
Did you get all that?
What you'll do is put a opening comment, and then before the new business, you'll put in comments again, and they can address the issues that are on the agenda.
So we'll make a statement there that says related to new business and finished business and those items at this time.
And issues only.
Yeah,
And
that's it, Don.
Issues.
That's it, that's the key right
Okay,
there.
if there's
It's
no
got to-
objection, we'll proceed that way. That's how it works.
So my only concern is the 3 minutes and
Well-
the length of time that we will get into. You could have a person conceivably get up there.
We've got somebody,
5,
if
15.
they've got 3 minutes to
If
get
we
in with
see it
citizen
running into a
comments,
problem, we can change.
and 3, I'm assuming that we're at 3 more at new business and 3 more at unfinished business.
Yep.
So, it's, you're adding up to 9 minutes.
Okay. We'll try it. I think we should try it.
Correct.
We're gonna try it with what he's saying.
That's not for every more amen.
We'll see how it works. I mean, it's.
Okay, fair enough. You want to address the number C there?
Oh, yes, Officer Fred Tennant is retiring at the end of this year. In the past, I know we have awarded retired police officers their service weapon and badge. Generally, what we should do for that is the board should make a motion to declare that surplus and award it to Officer Tennant, which will be done by the police chief at a ceremony at that time. But the board needs to declare it surplus and have it.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
The motion to declare service weapon and badge as surplus equipment awards Officer Fred Tennant upon his retirement. All those is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Number 7.
Yes, sir. This is the proposal for the purchase of the 72 golf carts, and we discussed this at length at the last meeting. These are the Yamaha golf carts with ball washers and rain covers. We had a couple of quotes for bank financing. The amount to be financed for these carts would be $175,000. If we finance it for 5 years, you're looking at a 1.91% interest rate. If you finance for 3 years, you're looking at 1.79% interest rate. If you flip over and you can see the amortization schedule. Basically what this comes out to is at 5 years, the cost of the golf course is $37,000 a year. At 3 years, it's $60,000 a year. There's a difference in interest of about $4,000 between the two, between the 5-year and the 3-year term. There's a resolution for either term, so whichever one you approve, I think you asked to come back with a couple options, so whichever one you approve, you would approve the 5-year, the 3-year term. We have a finance committee here for that, and approve that, and we can move forward.
Historically, I believe it's been 3 years, hasn't it?
The last purchase we did, the last purchase we did was a 3-year term.
And I'd like to make a motion that we do 3 years.
And that's the R1226, the 3 years?
Yes, sir.
There's a motion, any discussion?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Question about the golf carts we have now. Those belong to the town, right?
Yeah, they're being used as trade-ins.
Yes, that's right. But that's exactly right. They'll be traded in Yamaha. That we got a credit for that. That's why the purchase is pretty good.
I had a citizen ask about purchasing one or two.
They might can from the Yamaha, I mean, that,
They can't do the town,
No.
because we'll have, that's part of our agreement, but they could, they could work out, something with Yamaha on the front end.
I would tell them to contact Brent, and then he could talk to, he'll be dealing with Yamaha. You have, Ron, I think you have any comments?
No, not in the public session. None for me either.
Board?
Yes, I'd like to give an update on our meeting with Billy Casper. Actually, it was last Tuesday. They brought, instead of 3, they brought 5 representatives from their company. And they presented, which is what we asked for, a plan of action for the issues that were presented to them basically about 5 weeks ago. And the committee was very pleased and hopeful that the plan of action can be fulfilled. We're very optimistic and plan on meeting with the management company in approximately 3 months for an update. In summary, I can tell you there was a meeting of the minds. I think we're all on the same page, and I feel really good at this point, and I really hope for our sake that they can come through, and I kind of think they will. But anyway, as actually, we're consumers. The people who play this golf course, we're consumers, and we want a quality product. And I think it's up to them to deliver it to us. So that's where we are.
Thank you for all the work you did, mate.
Anyone else?
I want to follow up on something that Alderman Collins said about this board. This board is a kinder, gentler board. And I really like to commend Maggie and Don for being here and for bringing a sense of stability and a sense of caring and a sense of wanting to work with each other on a level playing field. To everybody out there, Merry Christmas.
I'd like to, couple of things. Thank the town square for the Christmas tree lighting, a great turnout, the Owen High School band. The parade, I think without doubt, is the biggest crowd we've ever had for the parade. I don't think it's a good job with the Chamber of Commerce. We thank them. Also the merchants on Holly Jolly and the Circle of Lights. And I think I speak for the entire board. Everybody happy holidays and a great Christmas. This time I'll ask for a motion to go into closed session, discuss personnel matters.
I'll make a motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.